On August 21st, 1955, two families living in rural Kentucky suddenly found themselves at the center of a national story. They told police that strange, small metallic beings had surrounded their home and could not be frightened or killed. The reports spread quickly and pulled public attention toward older, ignored claims of UFO landings and encounters with unknown beings. The strange descriptions of goblin-like figures caught people's attention. At the same time, aggressive and exaggerated media coverage made the story a punchline. That reaction helped create the wave of mockery that still surrounds reports of similar encounters today.
They didn't hurt them. They just kind of rolled up in a little ball and kind of rolled back down the hill over there where the ship was.
My name is O.P. Baker, and I was in the house that night, and I saw them creatures. Back then, I wasn't going to no church, and I started church, and I've been going to church ever since. I remember we all were sitting there about, I'd say around 8 o'clock. We heard a noise on top of the roof.
As far as the guns being shot, I don't know if whether it was on the far side of the house or this side. I do know that they said they come over.
He said they would come up to the windows and they just kind of stick to the side of a house like a spider could. And he said they just kind of peek around the windowsill with their heads and some old big beady eyes, and they just look in the window and just stare.
In the fall of 1955, 50-year-old Glennie Lankford lived in a modest farmhouse about 12 kilometers north of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, in a tiny community known as Kelly. Her farm sat roughly 400 meters from the nearest neighboring homes. She lived there with her son from her first marriage, J.C. Sutton, who managed the farm, along with his wife Aline. Also, living in the house were Glennie's 3 children from her second marriage, Lonnie, Charlton, and Mary. The family owned a few pigs, a dog, and several cats. They did not have a radio, telephone, or television. Their only source of water came from a well in the backyard. On the evening of August 21st, 1955, several relatives and friends were staying at the house. Glennie's eldest son from her first marriage, Elmer Sutton, was there with his wife Vera. Elmer's friend Billy Ray Taylor had also come along with his wife June. Aline's brother, O.P. Baker, was spending the night as well. In total, there were 11 people inside the farmhouse. Glennie did not allow alcohol in her home, and no one present had been drinking. Around 7 p.m., Billy Ray stepped outside to get water from the well. While he was outside, he noticed a bright, silvery object shaped like a saucer moving silently through the sky. It hovered about 9 to 12 meters above the ground and left behind a trail of colored light. The object came from the south, crossed over the property, and stopped above a nearby field north of the house. The object then dropped straight down and appeared to settle into a gully about 90 meters away, though Billy Ray could not see it touch the ground because of the trees. He ran back inside and told the others he had just seen a flying saucer. The rest of the group dismissed it and said it was probably a meteor. Less than an hour later, the dog began barking wildly. Billy Ray and Elmer stepped outside through the back door to see what was happening. The dog immediately ran under the house, tail tucked between its legs. As the men looked toward the field, they noticed a strange glow moving closer. As it approached, they could see a small figure standing about a meter tall. Its large, round head sat directly on its shoulders. It had long arms that nearly reached the ground, with oversized hands and claw-like fingers. The creature had wide, floppy ears, and its eyes were set at an angle, glowing yellow in the dark. Its upper body appeared muscular, while its legs were thin and stick-like, with no visible knees. The entire figure had a silver appearance and seemed to shine faintly in the darkness. The creature slowly moved toward the house with its arms raised. Elmer grabbed a 20-gauge single-barrel shotgun, while Billy Ray picked up a .22 rifle. They backed into the house and fired when the creature came within about 6 meters of the back door. According to the men, the creature flipped backward in the air, landed on all fours, and ran off into the weeds surrounding the yard. Billy Ray returned inside with Elmer, who handed his gun to J.C., and then grabbed a 12-gauge shotgun. Soon after, Billy Ray and J.C. fired at another creature that was peering through a window. This one also flipped backward and fled into the darkness. The men went out the front door to check if any of the creatures had been killed. As Billy Ray stepped forward under the edge of the roof, a clawed hand suddenly reached down and brushed his hair. Aline yanked him back inside, while Elmer rushed out and fired at the creature on the roof. Billy Ray then spotted another creature sitting on a branch of a maple tree in the yard. The men shot at it. Instead of falling, it floated down to the ground. When they fired again, it ran off into the weeds. At the same time, yet another creature appeared from the northwest side of the property. Elmer shot it at very close range and said the sound was like hitting a metal bucket. Later, the men fired at another creature on the roof. When it was struck, it drifted about 12 meters across the yard, landed on the back fence, and ran off after being shot again. Eventually, the men stopped trying to kill the creatures. For the next 3 hours, the beings continued to circle the house, climb onto the roof, and look inside through the windows. The witnesses noticed that the creatures only came close under the cover of darkness. They never stepped into the areas lit by the yard lights. They also observed 2 different ways the creatures moved. When approaching the house, they walked upright and slowly. After being shot, they dropped to all fours and escaped by pushing themselves forward with their arms rather than their legs. The beings appeared to glow more intensely when shot at, and even when they were simply shouted at. At no point were more than 2 of them seen together. By around 11 p.m., the group was becoming frantic, so they piled into the 2 vehicles on the property and drove to the Hopkinsville police station. The officers on duty noted that everyone seemed to be in shock. They immediately called Chief of Police Russell Greenwell and contacted the Kentucky State Police. Greenwell, joined by 2 state troopers and all the witnesses except June Taylor, who was particularly shaken, returned to the farmhouse. The Christian County Sheriff's Office sent a deputy and also called the staff photographer from the Kentucky New Era, the local newspaper, who arrived with his wife. 4 military policemen from Fort Campbell, a reporter from Madisonville, and 1 or 2 local onlookers also made their way to the scene. On the drive to the farmhouse, 1 state police officer reported hearing a whining noise like artillery fire and seeing 2 streaks of light descending toward the property. Later, he claimed these were just meteors. Several locals also said they had seen meteors that night at different times. The growing crowd of witnesses, reporters, police, and investigators converged on the farmhouse, flooding the area with light. While the witnesses stayed outside, Greenwell led investigators through the house, the yard, and some surrounding fields. Although signs of a firefight were apparent, no trace of the creatures was found. However, Greenwell and others noticed a small patch of grass near the back fence that glowed at a particular angle. It was later suggested this could have been a type of bioluminescent fungus. Greenwell, who had experienced his own UFO sighting in 1952, believed the witnesses had encountered something unusual, though he had no concrete proof. Once it became clear the creatures were gone, investigators began to leave, and by about 2 a.m., the exhausted witnesses were finally able to rest. Around 2:30 a.m., Mrs. Lankford was lying in bed near the window when she noticed a light outside. Upon opening her eyes, she saw one of the creatures looking in, its claws pressed against the screen. She called out to Elmer, who shot at it despite her protests. For the next 2 hours, more shots were fired, but the creatures did not leave. They showed no aggression and never attempted to enter the house, only observing from outside. They were last seen just before dawn, around 5 a.m. Later that morning, investigators returned for a more thorough search of the grounds, and the story began appearing in the news. Local radio station WHOP reported the incident during their early morning broadcast, and a reporter interviewed the witnesses later that day. Bud Ledwith, an engineer and announcer, arrived with the station owner's son. He spoke with Lankford and the Sutton women and created a sketch of the creatures based on their descriptions, recording the witnesses' earliest memories. Ledwith later produced 2 additional sketches incorporating corrections suggested by the men. Over the next few days, reporters from Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee swarmed Hopkinsville. An officer from Campbell Air Force Base came after hearing WAP's coverage, though the Public Information Office denied any official investigation. Greenwell also reported that 2 men arrived from Standiford, a commercial airfield. Despite the attention, the family declined most interviews, as did most neighbors. Some neighbors did report hearing gunshots, and one said they saw lights over the farm shortly after Taylor's sighting. Investigators found no trace of the creatures, not even footprints, but some evidence, like bullet casings scattered around the house and yard, went uncollected. 2 days after the event, Project Blue Book, the U.S. government's UFO research group, issued a statement saying there was no basis to the story, no Air Force report, and no ongoing investigation. The case is now listed in the Blue Book files as unidentified. Media coverage, however, generated significant interest, drawing visitors from the surrounding area. Cars lined the roads for nearly half a kilometer on either side of the property, and crowds gathered around the farmhouse for several days. Entrepreneurs attempted to sell merchandise in the front yard, but Mrs. Lankford refused every offer and did not appear on TV or radio after her WAP interview. She even posted a notice in the Kentucky New Era asking people not to visit and repeatedly called the state police to disperse the crowds. Much of the reporting was inaccurate and often sensationalized. National outlets referred to the creatures as little men, overstating both their number and intentions. Some papers claimed there were 12 to 15 creatures and described the incident as an invasion, despite the being's entirely non-violent behavior. Out-of-state media called them little green men, borrowing a term from Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast, even though no witness described them as green. Despite dismissive coverage from officials and journalists, at least one careful investigation took place. In June 1956, Isabel Davis of Civilian Saucer Intelligence spent 4 days in Hopkinsville, returning for follow-up 10 months later. She spoke with Glennie and Aline, the only fully cooperative witnesses, as well as Ledwith, neighbors, reporters, and the 3 local police departments involved. Davis later obtained all Air Force documents related to the Kelly landing case. These showed that in 1957, after learning of her upcoming report, the commander of the Air Technical Intelligence Center at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base requested information on the incident. The reply confirmed that a reserve officer had visited the scene, but it also made clear that higher-ups did not believe in UFO landings. Hynek, who had worked with Ledwith on another project and read Davis's manuscript, took a personal interest in the case and later discussed it in the UFO Experience. Davis produced the most thorough report on the Kelly-Hopkinsville incident in Close Encounter at Kelly, which was published by the Center for UFO Studies in 1978. The case defies easy explanation. Most UFO sightings can eventually be traced to natural phenomena, like planets or meteors, but the Kelly-Hopkinsville goblins don't fit any conventional explanation. It's hard to imagine how any person, animal or object could have been seen and fired upon repeatedly over such a long period and still be mistaken for small, shiny, floating goblins. Some skeptics, like Joe Nickel, have suggested that the creatures were simply great horned owls defending their territory. How such owls could survive multiple gunshots remains unexplained. Others have argued the incident was a hoax. Billy Ray Taylor, in particular, was considered unreliable by many investigators, with accusations that he either exaggerated or fabricated parts of the story. Yet not all witnesses were suspect. Several family members showed no signs of exaggeration or seeking profit from the encounter. Langford, especially, was regarded by investigators as a credible and trustworthy witness. Even if Billy Ray or others had made up certain elements, it seems unlikely that all participants could have coordinated a hoax and maintained it for decades. After all, they gained very little. A few days after the event, the Sutton family placed a sign in their driveway charging admission, with extra fees for photographs and interviews. Newspapers interpreted this as proof of a hoax for profit, but only Billy Ray actually collected money. The others simply wanted to get rid of curious visitors. If the families had intended to make themselves rich or famous, they failed to do so. There is also no physical evidence to support the sightings, not even claw marks on the ground or on the house's corrugated iron roof. The ground was hard and dry, and investigators left no trace. At the same time, witnesses clearly showed signs of fear. One medically trained investigator, who accompanied Billy Ray to the farmhouse, recorded a heartbeat of 140 beats per minute, twice the normal rate. All but one of the 11 family members reported seeing the silver creatures themselves. Investigators found no evidence that the witnesses were under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and ruled out hallucinations caused by substances. Whether real or imagined, the little goblins left a mark on popular culture. The creatures inspired many fictional monsters, including those in Critters and Gremlins, the Pokemon Sableye, and the farm invasion in the Nintendo 64 game Majora's Mask. Media coverage also popularized the term "Little Green Men," forever linking it with alien encounters. Kelly now hosts an annual Little Green Men festival, celebrating the encounter while leaning into the classic image of green-skinned aliens. The witnesses, especially Billy Ray, became prototypes for the stereotypical UFO observer. A Southern, gun-toting, country man with a modest education and an active imagination. Despite the skepticism and negative press, the case brought reports of entity encounters into the mainstream and pushed the U.S. Air Force to acknowledge them. Since 1947, people across the U.S. had reported sightings of unknown beings, with a surge in Western Europe in 1954. Until Kelly, the Air Force routinely dismissed these accounts. After the publicity around the Kelly incident, however, new reports became harder to ignore. Whatever actually happened that night, it's clear the witnesses experienced something unusual. Harassed by tourists and fearful of the creatures returning, Langford sold the house within a few months, and the families tried to move on. The Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter quickly became a classic in UFO history. The goblin-like beings influenced pop culture monsters, while the families shaped the public's image of the modern UFO witness. Anyone who assumes that only armed rural locals report UFOs owes much of that perception to the media coverage of the 1955 events in Kelly, Kentucky. In just a few hours, hundreds of reports have surfaced from Denmark and neighboring countries describing aerial phenomena that defy ordinary explanation. What started as scattered sightings of unusual lights in the night sky has escalated into a flood of speculation, with photos and videos spreading rapidly across social media and UFO research groups. Two images in particular, recently shared on Facebook communities dedicated to unexplained aerial events, have captured worldwide attention. Many enthusiasts claim these may be the clearest UFO photos ever released. The photographs show a massive triangular craft with rows of glowing lights along its underside. The shape is sharp, symmetrical, and far larger than any standard drone or conventional aircraft. Its lights shine brightly against the dark night sky, creating a striking contrast with the clouds around it. Unlike the blurry images typically associated with UFO sightings, these photos are unusually clear, showing details that have left viewers stunned. For those searching for definitive evidence, these images represent what some are calling a breakthrough. As the sightings continue, reports vary widely. Some witnesses describe glowing orbs darting rapidly across the sky, while others report steady green lights forming strange patterns over both urban and rural areas. Several observers insist they have seen large, dark objects hovering silently, blending with the night until their lights become visible. These conflicting accounts have created confusion, a common feature in UFO cases. Still, the sheer number of reports suggests something unusual is happening. Conversations online are filled with speculation. Some suggest the sightings may involve advanced aerial technology, secret military tests, or foreign operations whose purpose remains unclear. Others lean toward an extraterrestrial explanation, noting that glowing triangular crafts have appeared in UFO reports for decades. Meanwhile, some warn that false information is already spreading, with contradictory accounts of orbs, green lights, or dark triangular shapes designed to confuse the public. High-quality photographs like these are rare in UFO research. For years, skeptics dismissed blurry images as misidentified planes, drones, or atmospheric effects. These new photos challenge that narrative, showing sharp angles, symmetrical wings, and clusters of lights that seem beyond ordinary explanations. Their appearance during a sudden spike in regional sightings only adds to the mystery. Social media in Denmark has erupted since the images emerged. UFO enthusiasts, aviation experts, and casual observers are debating the photos intensely. Some argue the images show experimental drones of unprecedented size, possibly part of secret tests over the Baltic. Others believe that such a large, illuminated craft flying over populated areas without explanation is unprecedented and would have likely drawn attention from authorities. The silence from officials has only fueled speculation. Similar reports are coming in from neighboring countries. Witnesses from southern Sweden to northern Germany describe objects resembling those seen in Denmark. Triangular shapes, glowing orbs, and green lights moving in unusual patterns. The widespread nature of these sightings suggests this is not an isolated incident, possibly pointing to coordinated activity or a phenomenon on a large scale. Northern Europe has a history of UFO sightings, with past reports over the North Sea and radar anomalies observed by military and civilian operators. Still, this wave is unmatched in both intensity and documentation. The rapid influx of reports and the clarity of these images has created a sense of urgency. Skeptics have offered alternative explanations. Some argue that the sightings are drones, satellites, or reflections. Others suggest natural phenomena like auroras or ball lightning. Yet the mechanical triangular shapes and precise lighting challenge these explanations. What makes these events unique is the breadth of witnesses. Reports span multiple countries and contexts, adding credibility to the idea that something tangible is in the skies. For those convinced of a cover-up, the lack of official acknowledgement is telling. Many believe the contradictory accounts of orbs, green, lights, and dark triangles may be deliberately seeded to obscure the truth. Historical UFO cases show similar patterns of disinformation following widespread sightings. What's clear is that Denmark and its neighbors are at the center of one of the most significant UFO waves in recent years. Photographs too precise to ignore, hundreds of eyewitness accounts, and speculation spreading across social media show no signs of slowing. Whether these are secret military craft, advanced drones, or something else entirely, the people of Denmark and surrounding countries are left with more questions than answers. On the evening of September 22nd, the skies over northern Europe became the scene of one of the most unsettling aerial events in recent memory. Isolated sightings of glowing green drones quickly escalated, forcing the closure of two major airports in Scandinavia and sparking concerns about deliberate attempts to disrupt critical infrastructure. The events in Denmark, Norway, and nearby regions stranded tens of thousands of travelers, put governments on high alert, and left ordinary citizens questioning the safety of European airspace. The first disruptions occurred over Copenhagen. Witnesses reported unusual green lights near the airport. These were described as large, luminous drones far brighter than typical recreational models. Some hovered for more than half an hour, others for over an hour, showing no signs of normal flight behavior. Their unusual endurance convinced many that they were not ordinary civilian drones. A former airport employee later spoke out, claiming the public was not shown the full picture. According to him, the airport used standard inspection drones to distract attention from unidentified objects nearby. These routine drones, equipped with navigation lights and telemetry, were flown to provide a familiar explanation for witnesses and radar operators. Meanwhile, he insists, the real objects, lacking blinking lights and hovering far, longer than normal drones, continued in the background. According to the insider, this procedure was standard, intended to prevent disruption while giving the impression that the situation was under control. Air traffic authorities grounded flights after sightings of 2 or 3 large glowing drones near Copenhagen. Operations were suspended for nearly 4 hours, leaving tens of thousands of travelers stranded, with flights delayed or diverted. A similar situation occurred in Oslo, Norway, where the airport was shut for 3 hours after a drone was spotted. The timing, appearance, and threat to air safety suggested a serious and coordinated incident. For the first time in recent memory, 2 of Scandinavia's busiest airports were halted on the same night due to mysterious aerial objects. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen called the situation the most serious attack yet on the nation's critical infrastructure. She stressed that the activity seemed designed to disrupt and cause unrest, though the origin remained unknown. Denmark did not rule out any possibilities. These incidents occurred amid a backdrop of increased aerial activity and cyber disruptions across Europe. Russian drones had been reported in Polish and Romanian airspace, while Estonia confirmed Russian fighter jets entered its skies days before the Copenhagen events. European airports had also faced hacker attacks, amplifying concerns that infrastructure was being targeted. The glowing green drones unsettled many residents. Their steadiness and long hover times went beyond commercial drone capabilities. Thousands living near Copenhagen could see the objects clearly from homes and streets, proving the incidents were visible to the public, not confined to military zones. The airport closures highlighted vulnerabilities in modern aviation, with tens of thousands of passengers stranded and cargo delayed, showing how a few hours of disruption can ripple across the global supply chain. Security experts raised questions about whether state actors or unknown groups were behind the drones. Their endurance and bright lighting suggested advanced technology, far beyond typical commercial drones. European leaders remained cautious, with officials emphasizing the seriousness of the incidents while withholding specifics. Norway confirmed the gravity of the threat, noting how quickly a single drone sighting could paralyze a major airport. For travelers, the events caused frustration and fear. Passengers in Copenhagen watched the glowing objects from terminals, wondering why authorities could not stop them. Families were separated, trips disrupted, and vacations delayed. For many, the incidents blurred the line between ordinary drones and unexplained aerial phenomena. The glowing green color, extended hover times, and coordinated appearances over multiple capitals suggested something beyond conventional drones. In the days following, European governments accelerated discussions on defending critical infrastructure from drone incursions. Anti-drone technologies, radar systems, jammers, and even trained birds of prey were considered. But the scale of the events raised doubts. If drones could appear over multiple capitals, hover for hours, and shine brightly enough to be visible across cities, they seemed far more advanced than hobbyist models. Rising geopolitical tensions only intensified these concerns. Prime Minister Frederiksen noted that the incidents fit a pattern of drone activity, airspace violations, and cyber disruptions across Europe. Meanwhile, the public remained captivated. Images and videos of glowing green lights above Copenhagen and Oslo spread rapidly online. Residents described them as too steady, too large, and too enduring to be normal drones. The events of September 17th to 18th, 2025, may be remembered as a turning point. For the first time, two of Scandinavia's busiest airports were halted by unknown aerial vehicles. Tens of thousands of people experienced firsthand the vulnerability of modern aviation. Governments acknowledged the severity of the events, while leaving open the possibility of state or unknown actors being involved. The glowing green drones over northern Europe remain unexplained, whether they were experimental drones, advanced technology, or something stranger. Their presence has already changed perceptions of airspace safety. If you found this story as strange and unsettling as we did, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the world's unexplained mysteries. With hundreds of sightings and clear photos still surfacing, the question remains: what exactly was flying over northern Europe, and who or what is behind it?